Hello, welcome. Today we will be making Pheasant A La Creme out of Wild Game Cooking Made Easy by John Schumacher. Copyright 1997. The first line of this recipe is to roll pheasant in flour and brown in skillet in hot oil. So right now I have the oil heating on the stove. We are going to dismember a pheasant. I am going to put a towel under my cutting board because these pheasants have a lot of blood in them still. They've been leaking all over my refrigerator for the last couple days. So I'm just going to put this under here to absorb some of the blood that runs off. Here is our pheasant. They did leave a foot on for some reason with the game tag on it. So that's nice. We like that. I'm going to go ahead and remove that extra foot. Normally you would try and find the joint and go ahead and remove it there. It says to quarter it. So I'm going to do what I think is quartering. If you look here, this hip bone is already out of its joint, so I don't have to break it. I'm just going to go along here and try and follow the bone to get this back leg off. I'm going to do the same thing here. I can't see the leg bone, but yeah, it's not in the socket. So, yep, same process. All right, there's our pheasant leg. If you are not friends with a hunter, I am not sure where you would source pheasant. My brother-in-law goes and shoots pheasant with his father-in-law every fall, so they were kind enough to give us some pheasant. I have had to debone a chicken before. I think the process is similar, but also it's been a while since I've had to do that. I'm trying to use the bones as my guide. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to cut as close to the bones as possible without actually getting any bones. Because I would like to save as much meat as I can. So I'm taking one of my sharp, fine knives and kind of just scraping along there, trying to peel it back. And I'd say if you don't get everything, that's probably fine. There's some more feathers here. After I'm done cutting this up, I might just go ahead and give it a quick wash to try and get the rest of the feathers out. Since this is sourced from hunters, we're going to hope that they got all their bird shot out. The little wing bones there. So I'm going to try and cut around that. Yeah, just very carefully going along and scraping along the bones that are there. Also picking feathers out of this the whole time. And I could be doing this process very incorrect, but I believe this is the gist of what I'm supposed to be doing. Just going to come on back to this side and try and fillet it a little bit more. I'm going to come along this top bone here now and take off the two individual breasts. There's our one breast. See, there's still feathers on it. I'm probably going to wash it off. This side doesn't look the prettiest. Perfect. That's what we're left with after that process. I would say if you gave this a quick wash to get all the extra feathers and field debris off of it. You could save this and combine it with other bones and make a stock out of it. I am not a huge fan of pheasant, so I'm probably going to toss this. I'm hoping this recipe has enough other flavors in it to kind of hide the pheasant taste. I'm going to clean up my workstation here really quick and we'll get to the next step. All right, here's our pheasant. I went ahead and washed it and then had a quick look over it in the sink. What I mean by look over is I went through and tried to get any extra feathers off. There might be feathers in the entrance wound, so you'll have to go through and see if there are, and if there are, pull them out. This is also a great opportunity to look for any bird shot that was missed. I probably have not gotten all the bird shot out of it, so when it's wildly sourced, be careful when you chew it. The next step in the recipe is to roll the pheasant in flour and then brown it in a skillet. Here's our flour. They said to use seasoned flour, which for them, seasoned flour is salt and pepper. I went ahead and added salt and pepper, and then also Lowry seasoning salt and some Spanish paprika smoked. Take our bird, give it a good roll, make sure it's good and covered. All right. I'm just making sure it gets into all the nooks and crannies here. There's our entrance wounds. I had to pull feathers out of those. When you're checking your bird for bird shot, it isn't always by the entrance wound. It can go to the other side of the bird. It can move around. It can move around in weird ways. So when I was washing it off, I just tried to thoroughly kind of go through and see if I felt any more deeper in the tissue. I couldn't. Here's to hoping I got some of it. The next step in our process is to brown it in hot oil. It did not say at what temperature it wants us to brown it, and we are just browning it because this will be going into the oven for quite some time after this step in the process. I have it on medium heat. I'm trying to make sure they're not too crowded. But I went ahead and turned the heat off. We're going to remove the pheasant from the pan. I have a plate with paper towels on it to drain off some of the extra oil. The next step in this pheasant's journey is to put it in a casserole dish after we've removed it from the oil. I have it here sitting on a paper towel to kind of remove some of the extra oil. The goal was not to cook it, so this is still kind of raw. Make sure to wash your hands well after doing this step. After it's been put in the casserole dish, pour the chicken stock on top, 1 cup, and then 2 tablespoons of minced shallots. I went ahead and pre-cut these so you guys didn't have to watch me cry on camera. The oven's been preheating this whole time. We are now going to cover these, and we are going to bake for 1.5 hours on 350. So I'm going to throw this in the oven that is already preheated, and I'll see you in an hour and a half, roughly. Our pheasant has been cooking for an hour and a half. I went ahead and pulled it out. We're going to add some stuff to it and then throw it back in. That's what it looks like after an hour and a half. The first thing we are adding in is sherry, 3 ounces. It says to use cream sherry. I could not find any. I went ahead and got a sherry. It just says vintage cooking wine. I figure that's close enough. After that, we're adding 3 ounces of a dry white wine. We're going to use up some of the white wine that I used making the chicken piccata. The next thing is 1 teaspoon of salt. I went ahead and used kosher salt. The last thing is a pint and a half of heavy cream. Fun fact, a pint and a half equals 3 cups of heavy cream. That is too full. I'm going to have to transfer dishes, which sucks. I have managed to put it in a bigger casserole dish to finish off the cooking. Per the recipe, that was the last thing we needed to add. I do, however, have mushrooms, and I think it's going to go really well in here. I feel like mushrooms would be a good addition. So I'm just going to add them in and hope it doesn't mess it up. I'm just going to stir those in a little bit. That's what it looks like now. The next step is to put it back in the oven for an hour and a half. It does not say to recover it, so I'm not going to. It does not say anything about adjusting temperature, so I'm not going to. I am worried that an hour and a half might be a little long for the mushrooms. I think that hour and a half is to make the pheasant super tender and then to let some of that liquid evaporate some and make it more of a sauce instead of a soup. I'll see you guys in an hour and a half.